Let's talk about the moment a woman realizes that her life still works, but she can't keep living inside the same anymore. Nothing is falling apart. There's really no obvious problem. And yet there's a quiet, persistent feeling that something is no longer true. And what most women don't realize is this is the beginning of something, this potent time in our life. Welcome back to She Who Unbecomes podcast. This is a space for women who are no longer interested in performing a life that looks fine but doesn't feel like theirs anymore. And I am sharing this from my own personal experiences. My life is fine, but the other thing that I think is really true for women at this stage in their life is they don't really want to be fixed. And I don't think you need to fix anything. And you don't need to reinvent yourself. It's about understanding the moment that you're in, what version of you that once worked and no longer fits, and what it means to stop abandoning yourself inside of it. I'm Darcy. I'm the creator of this podcast. I'm the creator of Midlife Voyages. This is where we talk about the part that nobody explains, that nobody says out loud, and what really happens in midlife when you begin to change. So this is the first part of a series called The Woman Who Stops Obeying. That moment that we all feel, we just don't care anymore. And it's not rebellion. It's a shift. It's a change. And this doesn't show up initially as clarity. It shows up as an irritation, right? And I think this is where the rebellion part comes. It's a restlessness, an unsettled feeling that just follows you around wherever you go. As a low grief for something you can't really name. You notice it. You notice you have less patience. Maybe you notice that you have less tolerance and you tend to get a little sharper with people. And it doesn't feel like who you really are. You feel this less ability to keep pretending things are fine when they're not. Conversations that used to feel normal feel exhausting. Roles you've played for years feel really heavy. They just don't fit. And you just don't have a clear answer for why, which is what makes it so easy to ignore. And I think this is a moment where we can really continue to go number and just say, this is the way life is. Or you can admit that, oh, wait, this is conditioning. This is a pattern that I have a responsibility to myself to change, to notice. I know there are other women other than me that have felt this. And if you can feel this right now, what I'm talking about, I created something for you this exact moment. And it's not to fix you, it's to help you stay with this feeling, because this is a potent time in your life if you're willing to stay with the feeling. But I'm going to share it with you at the end. So stay with me. So let's talk about this pattern where you go outside of yourself. We see this so much. You try to fix a feeling. You try to be grateful instead of honest. You tell yourself, nothing is actually wrong. I should be happy. Or you project it onto your partner. I have a friend, a male friend I've known for a very long time, who's older than I am. And I remember him telling me about his wife. At one moment, he put the car keys in the drawer the wrong way. How she snapped at him. And he was just like, I just don't get it. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. It doesn't feel like who you really are. Now, you are going through a lot of hormonal transformation. And I am not going to discredit that, but I don't believe that that is the only thing happening. It's contributing to the change, of course. And I say this all the time, but there is something underneath going on, and we want to blame it all on our hormones. And I just don't think that's true. So we project it onto our partner, onto our environment, onto our life circumstances. So we go out and we change our whole wardrobe. We blow up our life. We go looking for outside ways to fix what's wrong with us. Maybe we buy into a lot of supplements that will keep us younger. We do just about anything, especially in our society, to stay young. And I hope through this series that I can convince you that aging, although yes, I didn't accept it at first. I was in my early 50s and there was just no way. And I hope to share a lot of that transformation with you. But when I accepted it, I tell you, everything changed. That doesn't mean I didn't stop taking care of myself. I just do it in different ways than I used to. So often, though, we suppress this until it becomes anger, until it becomes rebellion, until it becomes sharper. I've seen this in so many women, and I see it online all the time. And we want to look like her again. Quiet resentment builds up over time. We become emotionally distant, or a sudden, almost impulsive need to change absolutely everything. And sometimes women at this point in their life don't shift gently. They blow up their lives. Not because they're reckless, but because something inside of them has been ignored for too long. Now, I see lots of women do this, and I am not judging them. Maybe the change that they've made, the blow up that they've created, is exactly what needed to happen. But I also think there's another way. And I think that because I've experienced that, I have felt like blowing up my own life. I have felt like running from it. So here's the part that we don't talk about, that this isn't a personal failure that you're going through. This is a pattern you've been living inside of for decades, and it has become a bit unconscious because you were creating your life. So it is acceptable at some level, still in today's society, that as women, in large part, this isn't everybody, but in large part, we ignore the thing within us, the screaming thing within us that we really desire, that we really want. So much so that we don't even know what we want anymore by the time we get to this point. I think that happens for women close to 50. Like, I see this turmoil going on. So I want to share a personal story here. When I had my yoga and Pilates studio and I was working with private clients, I had this one client who I adored. She was with me for years. She was older than I was. And I remember her telling me how she felt like she aged in chunks. So she got to 50 and there was this like big change in her life. So she ignored it. She got to 55, same thing. And she ignored it. Then I closed my studio and I lost connection with her. And I think about her so often because she was truly unhappy in her life. She was truly reaching outside. Mostly, this is the other thing I see happen, is she lost herself in her children's lives, who now had, she had grandchildren. So worthy so. I totally get that. She completely shifted from not allowing herself to feel the things that maybe she really did need to blow up in her life, to numbing it and claiming that it was what we do as women. We take care of our grandchildren. Again, I am not judging that. I am just saying that that is not an excuse for ignoring that calling inside of you, that thing that you've been denying, that feeling you're overriding, and you stay agreeable, right? It starts to show up on our faces. For sure, for sure. And we begin to we continue to prioritize what works over what's true. So when something really surfaces, we don't recognize it, we react to it. Again, this is why I created this short audio that I'm going to link in my description below. And I really hope that you'll consider it, because that moment when you want to run from this feeling is the very moment when you want to stay and go deeper. And I explain that, and I help you do that. I share a little bit about what I have done. So that moment when we want to override ourselves, that's where everything either continues to be the same, or we take responsibility for ourselves, our individual selves, and we change it. And I've seen a lot of women do that as well. So I just want to call this out because this is my thing. This is where we call our lives, or people call us, in a midlife crisis. I have strong feelings about that, but I get why people call it that. But I think that word, crisis, implies that something is wrong with us. We're breaking inside. We need to fix ourselves, right? Right? Isn't that what crisis means to you? But what if something is actually becoming visible for the very first time? What if, instead of pathologizing this moment, we held it with a different kind of attention? What if we didn't panic and try to fix it? We calmed the urgency or emergency, and we sat with it with curiosity and compassion. Like, how often do you extend yourself compassion? Even reverence. Like, really think about that. I know that that alone has been a practice for me to be more compassionate with myself. And there is this fine line being compassionate and taking action and making a shift, a change, thinking about things in a different way. Because when you do, you'll begin to see that you are not falling apart. You're becoming aware that you've just been out of alignment with, like, really you, like you. If that makes sense, right? And, there's definitely a huge spiritual part of me that wants to say, this is your higher self. And it behooves us to listen to her. So I have been thinking about this for a while. And I'm not going to claim that I am a guru in archetypes, but I would like to talk about it because I think that there is an underlying archetype going on in this stage in our life, as there has been in other stages in our life. If you're unfamiliar with archetypes, I'm just going to give you an example of being a mother is an archetype. It is, I think, a desire that a lot of women have is to be a mother. And then there's all the things that go along with being a mother, underneath being a mother, right? And I'm not really here to talk about that, but it is pretty strong. And it's with us for life at some level. Because even when your children leave, you're still a mother. And you still have this underlying nurturing within you that then carries over into grandchildren. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things about being a woman. As long as we don't hide behind it and we don't lose ourselves in it. And then we get to midlife, and another archetype starts to push up against the life we've built. And you can give it many names. You can give it the initiator. You can give it the threshold. Crap, would that define it? Perfectly. This is a threshold. So I'm, for the sake of this podcast, calling it an initiator. And this is the moment when you notice it and you stop leaving yourself, where self-devotion replaces performance. Self-devotion, I like it better than commitment, even self-responsibility. I believe this archetype that begins to move through us in midlife is about as powerful as the other archetypes, becoming a mother. How about when you were a teenager? Another archetype. These are really powerful times in our life. And they're often associated with hormonal changes, so that can't be denied. But they do not, I'll say, arrive really loud. They do demand our attention if we're willing to listen to them, because it's an internal attention that is being asked of us. For example, what about all those times when you want to say no? And I know, this is very cliche for us women to hear, but I want to go below that no. And I want to call out that no as a huge way of dishonoring yourselves. Because when you don't want to do something, the dishonoring of yourself throws up on the other people, the world, the the people you think you're serving as also a dishonoring, a disrespect for them as well. Your no means something. And when you honor it, it comes out softer. It comes out as well-meaning without pretending or faking it. Another story. I grew up with a mother who never could receive. When someone would do something well or good for her or give her something, she immediately felt that she needed to repay them some way, and still does it to today. It took me a long time to notice this pattern in myself. And now that I'm 60 and she's in her 80s, and I call it out, and I don't do it anymore. I practice my no being no and my yes being yes. And when I practice that and I allow that, there is so much more life in me. There's so much more aliveness in me. And people can feel that. In some ways, even though she is her own person, it saddens me to see how much she sacrifices her no, because she sees it as an obligation to help other people. And I think it's two different things. There is a time, yes, there is a time when we help other people, but we do it from somewhere deep within us, not out of obligation, because that sucks. And if you have done that, or you have been the receiver of obligation, you can feel it. I know you can. Even if you're going to deny it, you can feel it. Obligation does not feel alive. It lessens us. It shrinks us a little bit. It compresses us a little bit. This initiator, back to her. There's a part of you that internally says, I don't care anymore. And I mean that in the best way. Like, I just don't care what people think anymore. It is so freeing. And it is not from a place of rebellion or anger. It actually comes from this place of us waking up to who we really are. And sometimes in my life, in the past, I have felt this, right? But I suppressed it and I ignored it. And I think the reason we do this is because, of course, it's easier to self-sacrifice so that we can be seen in others' eyes as perfect, as the caretaker, or however we want to label ourselves. This is so another discussion, and it is going to show up in my next podcast. This is the part of you, this initiator, is this part of you that stops obeying, right? Like, let that sink in a little bit. What does it mean to just obey? Not just the world, but yourself, right? That ego-based self. So when I was teaching yoga, one of the things I loved to teach was the spiritual part. And we would talk about the many layers of the self. And without going into that whole discussion, yoga really sees the part of us as the small self, and that is the ego, which we all have and sometimes really gets denigrated, but we need that part to live in this world. And then there's the bigger self or the higher self. And that is the part that I've been talking about for a large part of this podcast. That starts to get louder. Because when we don't honor those both sides of ourselves, our level of confidence, our level of self-trust, our ability to feel worthy in the world has all been denigrated. It fades. And we don't even know what it feels like to be a stand for ourselves anymore, other than from a place of anger or rebellion. And I just simply don't think that works. So this initiator is trying to get your attention. She is trying to get you to stop agreeing to the things that don't feel true. Stop performing versions of yourself that you used to be. Something in you has already shifted. But let's talk about this messy part a little bit. Because I think this can be a little disorienting for us all when you stop overriding yourself and everything you've built your life on or for starts to feel different. Our relationships, our routines, our identity for sure starts to change. And that can feel unsettling. And you don't really know what's true yet when this feeling, this initiator starts to get louder. You're kind of in this in-between space. You feel detached, irritated, restless, even a little cold. You might think, okay, these are my own personal experience for sure. I've outgrown everything. Or how about this one? No one understands me anymore. Or you might feel this quiet urge to just disappear for a while. Now, I do believe in midlife. We experience this time where we want to be alone more. That is different than disappearing. I'm going to talk about that in another podcast. So I don't see this disappearing or this time alone as something wrong at all. I think it's more prominent than most women are willing to admit, let alone take action on. When I was in my shamanic training, it's kind of interesting. I was in with women my own age, younger and older, of course. And one of the things I remember us speaking about in the women that were sort of in my age group was sleep divorce. So we would talk a lot about how, at a certain point in your marriage, you want to sleep by yourself for a lot of reasons. One, you want more space. You don't sleep at the same temperature as your husband or your partner. They snore or you snore. There's lots of reasons, right? And you start finally admitting to yourself, like, I just want to sleep by myself. I just really want my own room. And I think a lot of marriages do this. We finally have at some level, not 100%. And I tell you, we're both so much happier. Like, really, there are times to sleep together, and there are times sleeping apart feels amazing because we sleep so different as we've gotten older. And I don't think that's wrong. You can still have intimacy in your relationship. I give you permission. So there's a raw, honest part of you that's been waiting. And if you don't understand her, you'll either silence her again, numb her, bury her, and call it this is the way life is, or you'll let her run your life. And this is the part where I think people and women blow up their life. So I just heard a statistic, and I'm going to forget the percentage. And I have had this feeling since I started coaching women, which I'm not really doing much of anymore. But if you pay attention, midlife, 50s, 60s, early 60s, is when most women will file for divorce. It is a proven fact. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, no judgment. We do change as we get older. I am not 100% convinced that blowing up your life, filing for divorce, is always the answer. It is sometimes. Kind of depends on what your partner is willing to give and take, right? But it's not about staying the same either. So if divorce or separation needs to happen because you have changed so dramatically and your partner isn't willing to come along, then that might be a very good option. Luckily, in my life, my partner and I have had so many conversations. And what I have noticed is those conversations about who I actually never allowed myself to continue to be, right? So I think when I was a teenager, I was this person. I got into my 20s, I was this person. We didn't get married till I was in early 30s. And now I'm 60. I am not the same person that he married back then, and nor is he. But I really believe this because I have done so much work on myself. In order for me to be a coach for women in midlife, I had to do a lot of work on myself. I had a career of working on myself when I was in yoga because not only did I love the asana, but I really loved the spiritual and emotional part of it that would come through the asana. And I'd pay attention to it. And that's how I taught. So I think that really helped me when I got older and got into this phase to help put words to what I was feeling. And you didn't always want to hear what I had to say or how I feel or what I'm thinking. But overall, he was very compassionate and still is. I love that even though our relationship grew apart for a while, when I was sort of in really deep, intense part of it, and how it's come back together in a completely different way than it was when we first got married. And, we got married later in life. So I think it's about how you stay with yourself in the moments where a lot of people leave. When you feel something and you can't quite explain it, right? That's a tough time. When something feels off and you don't have any clarity around it. And these aren't when you're making big decisions. These are just this underlying time when there's this shift happening. But then there's these moments of self-honesty that changes everything. Not dramatically, but undeniably. So, in closing this podcast, if you're still here and you notice or willing to accept that nothing is wrong with you, but something is no longer right at the same time, right? you can feel this shift. And you want to, well, actually, I really want you to understand that you're not broken. You don't need to go get fixed anywhere. You don't need to pretend that you're not aging. You're not too late for anything. If I could express that in one sentence, please, please know that you are not late for anything. Okay, maybe mini skirts, but hell, if they make you feel good, wear them. Who cares? I don't care anymore. But you are at the beginning of something possibly, or maybe you're like in the throes of it, the middle of it. And I think this is where most women never allow themselves to fully experience. The question isn't, what should I do with my life? The question is, where am I still leaving myself? Where am I still leaving myself, even now? Really, really take that in. And if you feel this and you still don't understand it, I did create something for you, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast. It's not a meditation and it's not going to give you answers because you really are the only one. And my biggest goal in my podcasts, in my voyages, is to help you find you without leaving yourself again. And you're no longer willing to keep doing this unconsciously. You're ready to feel what is actually true, even if it changes something. So I'm telling you, it probably will. And to have, create, feel, open expansion, like open your heart to yourself. Have compassion, loving compassion for who you really, really are. She will show up. She will reveal to you. So the link is in the description below if you are interested in this audio transmission that I hope will open you to something new in yourself. It's short, but one of the things I would really encourage you to do is to give yourself space to listen to it, even 10 minutes. I think it's a little bit over 6 minutes. But give yourself 10 minutes so you can really pay attention to what comes up when you hear it. Because those are the moments to pay attention to. That's when things begin to change. So if you enjoyed this, come back because this is a series. Next time, I am going to talk about the messy middle. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that. So I would love to hear from you in the comments below. First, go download this audio. And then I would like to hear from you. I'm making this up on the fly. I would like to hear from you. What don't you care about anymore? I mean, really, don't just say the thing. Like, bring up what you really don't care about anymore and you're ready to let it go. Put that in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, but until next week, in the messy middle, practice compassion for yourself. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.